Hello there and welcome once again to Eamonn and The Gaffers. Now this time around a slightly different take, because over the course of the series you've heard from the managers, you've heard from players, you've heard from players who were managers. In this episode I want to introduce you to David Campbell. Now David is a former player and international for Northern Ireland who now uses that experience to often be the go-between between a player and a manager, explaining to the player why the gaffer has made the decisions that he has made, and they're for professional reasons and don't take it personally. And David is what is termed as an FA intermediary or an agent to you and me. Let's say hello to him and talk to them. David, very good to see you.
Good afternoon, Eamonn. Delighted to be here.
You entered this field a couple of years ago because you weren't pleased at how a lot of agents were behaving and how, in your opinion, they weren't looking after the best interests of players. So tell me more as to the creature that you are.
I think from a point of view of my background, I left home at 15 years of age, left Northern Ireland to come over to play at the time for probably one of the greatest managers of all time, in Brian Clough. And they just won the second European Cup back-to-back, an amazing achievement. And one thing Cloughie would never had you in was he never had an agent in to go some contracts. He went, you learn to negotiate yourself. So I've always been interested in that side. And over the years, through business and various stuff I've done in football, I always felt, it's what's right for the player, what's most important for the player, and the relationship between the player and the manager and the player and the club. And what had amazed me working with young players, young internationals, players of all levels, was sometimes if that relationship breaks down, sometimes the agent or the intermediary can help. And I found that wasn't always the case. Or sometimes maybe if a player get injured or the player was out of the team, sometimes the player couldn't go and just have the chat. So who was going to do it on behalf of the player? And I found that many situations that the player, I don't think, was always been well looked after. And I thought, okay, what can I bring to the table to support them and in their career? And I decided at the time I would do one thing. I would look after that player and put myself in their shoes or their boots and give the best possible advice and the correct guidance.
I want a lot of it as well. Surely, David, just boils down to the fact whether two people click, whether someone likes you or whether they don't like you, if your face fits or not.
I would turn down more players than I take on because I want the player also to be hungry. For me, this is an amazing industry. Football and sport is an incredible industry to be involved in. And since I was 15, the last 40 years now, I've been involved in football at different levels. And I feel honoured and privileged to be in the profession. So, especially young players, sometimes young players might get the wrong advice, or they're getting, it's about your playing and your development, and looking how can you benefit from this amazing game. Sometimes I've heard young players getting advice that's about contracts and money. No, that all comes if you do it properly. That will all come. And sometimes players are more interested in going to red carpet events or diamonds for the girlfriends and all this and the big fancy cars. Once again, that comes. Get your career sorted, get your attitude sorted, and have a good relationship with the manager and the staff and the club.
Say you've got natural ability, and I'm thinking of a few players who shall remain nameless here, but say you've got that natural ability, maybe more than that natural ability, but that your manager is not into red carpet events, or the fact that you drive a gold Rolls Royce or have a lot of bling or whatever it happens to be. Do you often, or would you have to go in there as peacemaker, or do you think that a lot of agents don't do that?
I once was friendly with a young player. I met him in London many years ago, and I was in this exec box at a Premier League game, and he was due to have a chat with the manager afterwards. And the agent was going back to London and he wanted to get the early train back. Now, I thought that meant 6:30, 7 o'clock after the match finished, have some cups of tea, biscuits, whatever in the boardroom. He wanted to get the 4 o'clock train back to London. And I'm thinking, wow, is that how you look after your client? That he wouldn't even stay for the second half. He was like, no, I've had a word with the player, what needs to be said. And, players need support sometimes. I mean, you can't sometimes get it from your immediate family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for instance, I'm thinking if you're suddenly dropped, if you're not put in the position that you want to play, it's more than just money, isn't it?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's just, okay, have a word with a gaffer, have a cup of tea after training and say, can you have 5 or 10 minutes? And just go through, not gaffer, why am I not playing? It's the other way, gaffer, what can I do to get back in? What would you suggest? What do you have to do? Have that work ethic. Some of the best players, it's a true thing, Eamonn, you can't get them off the pitch. They want to do the extra bit.
Yeah.
They want to do more free kicks, more penalties, more this, more that. And that's what I love working with, that type of young player, that player that really, really loves football.
I mean, you may be listening and watching this and you may be saying, this guy's very interesting and he's got enthusiasm that radiates from himself. But I've never heard of David Campbell, never heard of him, don't know who he is. This man has had, basically, he's been the main centre of attention of a film, of a drama feature film called Shooting for Socrates. Yes. Would you care, David, to tell people in a nutshell really what that movie is about?
It was brilliant. I had a fantastic career under, say, one of the most iconic managers of all time, Brian Clough. And at an early age, I realised, I'm working with a genius. His charisma is unbelievable. To me, he was a hero in football.
You say a genius, and I was going to bring this up later. Was he a genius or was he an eccentric?
Both. Great word, eccentric. Love that. You could be in the changing room. You could have scored a hat-trick, and when you come in afterwards, you don't know what he was going to say to you. I'll give you one very, very quick example. I scored my first goal, and come on sub, scored against Watford. We scored the winner. And I come in, I was doing all the waving to the crowds at the City Ground, 25, 30,000. I was young, young pro. My first goal, and oh God, I was going mad. So you come into the changing room, and the gaffer says, used to call me Irish, next time you score a goal, I want you to come to the dugout and give me a little peck on my cheek. Because I've made you what you are. And he says, in fact, he says, stop taking off your boots, stop taking off your shin pads. I want you to walk across the change room now and just come and just give me a little peck here. And I'm thinking, oh, what do I do? So I got up off my chair, or up off the change room, walked across the gaffer, and I'm thinking, he's going to do one of two things, Eamonn.
Yeah.
He's going to hit me in the tummy and say, or he's going to give me a slap, So one of the two, in a gentle way, because even what he was doing, he says, look, you scored, that's great, you won the match, but never you get carried away, So anyway, I'm walking towards him, and all of a sudden, I'm keeping an eye. He sort of give me there, and I'm keeping an eye on his right thing. And just as I sort of leant in, hit me with my tummy muscles, I go back, sit down. He says, but the next time you score, you come run to the dugout. The next match we played was Bolton. It was a cup match, and I managed to get my dad over for the match. And after the match, my dad said, son, as soon as you scored, and I scored too that day against Bolton in the cup, you sprinted from the 18-yard box towards the dugout. And the dugouts at Nottingham Forest were quite in. So all it seemed was my backside hanging out of the dugout. I said, what the hell are you doing? I says, Dad, I had to make sure I went and thanked Mr. Clough for everything, So fast forward a few years, I had a career-ending injury, a really bad injury, a broken leg. And I was invited to the Cannes Film Festival. And it was one of those ones, once again, a boy from outside Derry, on this third floor of this yacht, and surrounded by all these movie people, actors, actresses, directors, producers. And I'm having a little glass, and I'm thinking, Jesus, don't breathe and kiss, this is all a bloody dream, whatever. And I'm looking over to Lorraine, my partner, and she was gabbing away to this guy, and his name was James. And during our time in Cannes, everyone is a director, a producer, the actor, they're going to make it, everyone's to give you the business card.
Yeah.
So this guy comes and said, hi, my name's James. I'm just speaking to, I think it's Lorraine. Yeah, Lorraine. She told me that you used to be a footballer. I said, well, that's a long time ago. I said, look, I don't want to talk shop. And they went, all right, I understand. I said, but can I just ask you one thing then? What was your favorite moment in sport? I said, well, obviously, making my debut for my country against Brazil in the World Cup finals. And we were the smallest country ever. And he went, has anybody ever done anything about that? I said, how do you mean? He said, well, there's my card. I'm from London. Give me a shout. And next, we were at a wedding in London a few weeks later. I thought, give this guy a wee tingle and see what the crack is. So we met him. And he went, look, I think there's potential documentary in this.
Yeah.
So we brought James over at the Culloden Hotel outside Belfast. The international team were getting a get together for our kitman, and all the boys were coming over. All the various players from different squads, from 82 Spain, 86 squad. For Derek, it was Derek McKinley, God rest Derek, and Derek was a lovely gentleman. So we all wanted to show our appreciation. So we all come over for Derek. So we got the director, or James at the time, to have a chat with all the boys.
Yes. And
halfway through the afternoon, he said to me, he said, David, I don't think this is a documentary. I think this is a movie in the making. And 3 years later, having gone, traveled, put everything together, and we wanted something very special for the movie and for the premiere of Shooting for Socrates, Eamonn, because we were never going to win the World Cup as an Irish player. Okay.
People want to know how you did against Brazil. What was the score?
We did okay. For some reason, they had a couple of 3-wonder goals. So the final score was 3-0. Okay. It was 3-0. But,
take that.
And one thing, which just a side issue, during that time, and this is where I love football, and this is where I think the amazing power of football. I don't know if you ever knew him, during the time of the 86 World Cup, we had no incidents back home in Northern Ireland. There was no shootings, no bombings, no kneecappings, no nothing. And it was the same in 82 in Spain. Football did bring the community together, and people were passionate about Northern Ireland, how they were going to do it. And we tried to reflect that in the movie, because this was mid-80s and troubles and times were difficult. So we thought, we never told the players this at the premiere. We wanted something very special from FIFA. So we said to FIFA, we're going to have many of the players from 1986 at this premiere. We want the World Cup trophy. And thank God Sepp Blatter gave permission to have the trophy. We shot the movie over, it was about, took a long time shooting it. And we had actors, real professional. John Hannah had been in many A-list Hollywood movies. My God, John played Billy Bingham with different characters playing different players. And that was funny because the players then got to meet who played them. And that was hilarious, And some of the boys get a bit precious sometimes, and you would go, oh, Jesus, am I not better looking than that? No, that sort of stuff, And I had a six-pack, and we've all changed. But the actor that played Big Pat Jennings was hilarious because Pat's hairstyle hasn't changed too much over the years, unlike some of us. And I remember we introduced the actor to play Pat, and the similarity, Eamonn, was scary because the wig and everything the actor had to put on, and the accent. Pat's got that lovely distinctive accent. So it was amazing. This film was out there, and it was incredible putting something like it together, and it was done, in some respects about, oh God, my experiences around that time, and it was very proud, very, very proud to have something that got made. But the boys were brilliant. The support from all the players was fantastic. The support from the Northern Ireland community was fantastic. And we launched it that night at the waterfront. And there was 2,200 people there. And I think the applications to come that night was in the tens of thousands.
Yeah. Well, it shows the unifying power of sport. And listening to you talk, watching you there, the joy that this game has given you. I mean, it just exudes from you. David Campbell has the highest qualifications going. He's got his UEFA Pro license there. He has coached, and where I first met him was coaching school for kids, for school kids, soccer schools, David Campbell soccer schools. You have also produced many hundreds, if not thousands, of professional coaches who have gone on to work around the world. But I want to ask you this. We're now in a situation, and I'm looking at your enthusiasm and what you could bring to this is, where we have huge complaints, huge worries about the representation of people who are not white in the game, particularly in the managerial levels. What can be done about that, David? What are your observations on that?
You know, there's two things to look at. I'm an employer. I employ professional coaches. I've got different staff, and for the last 25 years, we've employed people in the sport and football industry. And to me, it doesn't matter what comes through the door, what CV. You give the person a chance based on talent, based on what they can bring to the table as in a business, and you give the person the opportunity.
But also based on experience, and a lot of people from an ethnic minority haven't had the chance to get the experience.
You look at Liverpool's team that won the championship and how many black players we've got. You look at the England national team, how many black players we've got. And the amount of black coaches in the game, it's crazy. Because the players are there. They have the talent. Same communication skills as us. Same hunger, same passion. The PFA are looking at it. The FA are looking at it. It's going to probably take one or two more in the boardrooms and chairmen and chief execs to look at it. And it will be a progression. It will take time. It's, you know, and all of a sudden, hopefully over the next few years, more and more positions will be filled with people from all backgrounds, you know, and then once someone is deemed to be successful, you know, going back to my generation, Viv Anderson was the first black player ever to play for England.
Yeah.
Now, oh yes, it's 10, 20, 30 years ago, but the progression now is, my God, you know, it's players, and it doesn't, to me as a footballer, I couldn't care. You know, it's about a player or a manager or coach. Wouldn't matter for me in the slightest.
But do you think the opportunities are now being created and the awareness is definitely there, and you feel that within a generation we have to, or we should see a difference?
Please God, yes,
yeah.
Yes. But it has to keep you have to keep pushing. And you know, there's a lot of media attention on it now. There's a lot of people talking about it. I hope in a few months' time, when we get rid of this corona disease, God willing, that just doesn't stop then. It has to keep pushing and keep pushing.
You mentioned corona disease there. What effects? I mean, you know, we've got Wigan now in receivership. We've got this COVID pandemic. All the attention is on Project Restart and the Premier League. What effects do you think this COVID pandemic will have on lower league teams or throughout the game? Do you think our change in different ways for the foreseeable future, if not forever?
Well, the initial one's the financial side. Absolutely. As a registered intermediary agent, there's going to be a financial impact on the lower clubs. They may have to bring in the wage limits. They may have to bring that wage structure into it, or you know, you might not give out the crazy wages. You might do it as there's your basics, and then bring in performance related.
But a lot of that will depend on agents, though, as well. They'll have a big say in that, or big influence on that. Absolutely,
and you know, and for many years, as part of the PFA strived that players weren't restricted, you know, and all the challenges that, you know, that there was freedom. There was freedom that. So you've got to be careful with that. That's not all of a sudden what I'm saying, that clubs don't use that in, to the advantage of, you know, there might be clubs that can afford, oh, let's try and maybe cut a corner or two here. That would be wrong. But they will have to cut the cloth, because if there's no fans coming through at the lower level, you know, yes, there are TV money, but it's not like the Premiership boys. So the fans are so important to the game. And you know something, just like the NHS has been over the last few months, incredibly, maybe football more than ever will really now appreciate the importance of fans like never before.
So you could see more casualties outside Wigan as
obviously, this. Please God not, but you know, if Wigan, a Premiership club 6 years ago, an FA Cup winner 5 or 6 years ago, Wigan have got the second best record since Christmas in the Championship. They've done brilliant. And Paul would have woken up the following morning as high as a kite to be told administration. And now Paul is a manager. The effect that has on the change room, on the community, is massive, Eamonn. You know, those players have done brilliant.
Yeah.
But now they'll be worried.
But you see, David, talking to you, and you mentioned the word community there. You've mentioned it a couple of times as well. I think in this TV age, a lot of us forget what a club meant to the community. I mean, but lower league managers, they've got to go out and court those communities, and that's really part of their job, isn't it? Really, their job description.
There's a fantastic manager at Accrington Stanley, John Coleman. You'll know John. And John's average attendance, home average, is probably 1,500 to 2,000 fans. And he's in the first division in England. And there's teams like, you know, Sunderland, maybe 25, 30,000 fans.
Yeah.
How does John compete? It is incredible job he must do at that level. And also attracting players. They can't offer them fortunes. So a player would want to come to Accrington Stanley, be part of the club, be part of that community for the right reasons.
Yes. And,
you know, for me, some of the clubs I've played for over the years, like Charlton Athletic, Bradford City, Burnley, you know, the football is everything. The club is everything in that town, in those cities. And, you know, the club has a massive impact on how people feel during the week.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, if you're a Man United fan, like your good self, you know, we'll have loads of people coming from Ireland, all around the world, come to Old Trafford. But generally speaking, those lower clubs, it's the local community will support.
Yeah.
It's a local support, local community, and maybe the business will do the sponsorship, match balls, match sponsors, maybe take the odd. And
even the town, if they're in good moods, they're spending money in the pubs and the clubs and the shops, and you know, it's got a feel good factor. It's a ripple effect, isn't it?
And also for the young ones growing up, you know, if you go to your first game in the traditional dad and son, or dad and daughter thing, or mum and dad and the boy and girl going for that first match, and you go to somewhere like an Accrington Stanley, no, you're right there. You're right on the pitch, nearly.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's as real as it gets.
It's brilliant.
You know, bearing in mind, you live and you breathe this game and you live for it. What would you say to anyone who's not good enough to be a player, not good enough to be a manager, whatever, but someone who's looking for a career in football, but not as a footballer? What would you say to them?
Brilliant question. Fantastic question. In 1995, we set up our business. And I went to Umbro, who are the sports manufacturer. And I said, you know, I've got this idea about running programs for young people, initially back in Northern Ireland, bringing the community together, both Catholics and Protestants together through football. I've got an idea. And they went, okay. And, you know, we wrote a proposal or like a sponsorship request, but he says, we'll sponsor you in the first year. And we did this in Northern Ireland. And what we decided to do was we would have famous ex-players, ex-internationals to coach with the children. And we'd have the current internationals, or like Man United players, come and chat to the young people of Northern Ireland about opportunities. And it was fascinating because the mums and dads would have known, you know, likes of Phil Neal and Kevin Sheedy's and Mal Donaghy's and David McCreary's and all those famous players. And the current generation would have known the likes of Paul Parker at Man United, or Steve McMenamin at Liverpool, or Roy Keane's and that. And I was like, wow, this thing's working. And we did that for 4 or 5 years, all around the UK. And in the year 2000, it was getting so successful. Thousands of young children were coming to the events that we needed more coaches. So we went to the government and we said, we have an idea to launch a coaching program for 16 to 24-year-olds, for men and women, and no matter what your background, what your education background, no matter what, that perhaps you get your first rung on the ladder of getting into this football and sports industry. And we're going to educate you. We're going to put you through a full-time qualification over a couple of years. And we're going to make it as real. We're going to give you the opportunities, both in the UK and internationally. We got invited to Westminster Palace, myself and Lorraine, 18 months ago, for an award, which we were very proud of him. And they said that from Since you started, you've now worked with over 1.3 million children. You've created thousands of jobs for young people all around the world. And for me, the brilliant thing about the qualifications we do, it's open the doors for someone that maybe think, I can't write an email to Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, whoever it is, looking for a job, because they might not even look at the email. But if you educate, you give them the confidence, they say, I'll tell you what, you know something, it's not impossible. If you get the right people around you, a wee bit of support, and when they're having a knock, and when we work with young people, 16 to 19-year-olds now especially, and you know, it's challenging for them, and they're finding it very difficult, and as you said, maybe they're not the best player, but they have a passion in them, and they want to try and get in this industry. So I said to them, right, see your CV, put your CV to the side, talk to me, convince me that this is what you want to do. And they'll go, yeah, I'd love to earn me living in football. And I said, well, look, you know, if you want to earn your living in sport or professional football, it's really difficult. So what we're going to we're not easy to work with. We're going to prepare you for you. We're very demanding. We're going to, probably what Clough did to me all those years ago, we're going to put you through it. But at the other end, there's an opportunity. And it might not be in the UK. We've sent so many young people to America, to Canada, to Australia, to China. And they're now earning their livings as in the game. And it is the most satisfying, well, apart from scoring a winner, it's the most satisfying thing, Eamonn, to see them coming in at 16, 17, raw, innocent, like I was when I first came to England. And all you're doing, you're guiding them. I've got fantastic staff. The staff are as passionate as I am. Yeah. A lot of my staff are ex-students.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant because they've come through the journey with us. And now you're bringing your ex-students back to speak to the current ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Eamonn, that's powerful.
Well, you continue to be powerful, David Campbell, through your coaching, through your schools, through your intermediary role as an agent there. And you really do seem to be a force for good within the game. Maybe one day you'll complete the triangle: player, agent, manager. Maybe that needs to be.
I would love to.
But good luck. Lovely talking to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you for your questions. The questions were brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Eamonn and the Gaffers, you've been listening to David Campbell, an FA intermediary. It's available on YouTube and wherever place you get your podcasts from. Thank you for listening. Join me next time.